I'm Cava Florin. Welcome to the Nurture Series. Welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you. This is Danielle Gopen, who is an executive coach, and today she's teaching us how to find our sparkle. Thank you for being here, Danielle. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I got to meet you 18 months ago through Lauren Weinstein, a communications coach who we did have on the show. And it was like love at first sight when I met you. I felt like we had just clicked so hard. You're like my people. And I think the first conversation we ever had was I had just finished a documentary, and I was a little stressed out because I had an amazing opportunity to be on a TV show, which got canceled because of COVID. And I was thinking to myself, what do I do now? And I remember spending a good couple of hours over drinks at the, what was the hotel we were at?
We were at Casa del Mar in Santa Monica.
We were at Casa del Mar, and we were talking about, how do I reignite my next gig, right? Because I do a lot of, I'm more of a freelance artist. And so there's always what do I do next? How do I reinvent myself now that COVID's happened? So my question for you is, and you gave me a lot of great answers, so I'm excited to have you on the show to give people answers about this, but what is the number one thing that you see is the big block that women really struggle with in finding what their voice is, in finding their sparkle? What's that block?
Yeah, I would say it's this feeling of not deserving it, or that you can't do it, you're not good enough. Which, if you've heard me talk once, you've heard me talk a million times about this idea of the saboteurs, which are these voices in our heads. We all have them. They show up in different ways, but basically they're there because, going back thousands, millions of years, they were there to help keep us safe in terms of not encountering true danger, like leaving the cave and getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. But now their job in the modern world isn't as applicable. What sends those fear signals into our brains of not trying something new, of not putting ourselves out there, is coming from these saboteurs who are trying to keep us safe and protected by staying within what we already know, within our comfort zone. And so I feel like it's that feeling of, do I deserve this? Can I do this? Am I good enough for this? Who's going to want me for this? Is probably the most common thing that I see. And it's funny, when we met, what you were talking about, figuring out your next move, I feel like is very applicable for the Activate Your Sparkle, because it really is all about figuring out who are you, and what makes sense, and what do you want to focus your time and energy on. And I know that we had a lot of conversation about values and figuring out, what have you done in your past that you really enjoyed? What didn't you like so much? What are some limiting beliefs that are maybe holding you back? And a culmination of that, I'm going to take full credit here, but no, just kidding.
You can. You absolutely can't take full credit for the Nurture Series. That is for sure.
No, I'm totally joking. But
I'll give it to you, baby. You deserve it. For sure.
But I think after those conversations, I did notice, from your side, this expansion of, okay, I can do this. I do like that. I do want to move in that direction. So I don't know. I'm curious to hear from your point of view. How did it feel being on the other end?
Well, I think the thing that you do, which is very wonderful, is you're able to hold someone's space with so much intention. You really looked at me and you saw me, and that's a beautiful gift that you give to people in your practice, but also just as a human being. So there was, and when we had these conversations, it was definitely, at a time that I was like, I don't know where to go next, because there were things that were just not panning out the way I wanted them to. So it was also like I had to make some decisions around, what is it that I love? What is it that doesn't really serve me? Maybe I need to move in a different direction. The question that I have for you, though, in terms of you working with people that I want you to share with our viewers is what is like, is there a particular formula for discovering what it is that your sparkle is? And it does, you don't have to give the whole thing away because I know this is your business. I want people to hear from you, but so you don't have to give your whole, pitch away, but in terms of like even one small thing that someone can take away that they can ponder and go, "Oh, I never thought of even doing that."
Yeah. So I hesitate with the word formula because I think what I do and the clients that I work with, I intentionally try not to be formulaic, understanding that everybody is an individual, everybody is coming in with their own whatever it might be that requires really customized attention. That being said, I do have some tools and tricks to help draw out some of that as we go. I think one of the simplest things to do to start that a lot of people don't do for, just the days go by and we forget about what we've accomplished in our lives. But I think one of the simplest things to do is to spend some time, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, and just think about 10 things that you've done in your life that you're really proud of. It can be
Yeah.
really small, it can be really big, but just something that you're proud of, something that you can look at and say, oh, yeah, I did do that. And then once you start to create that list, you start to get these feelings of, oh, I've done more than I thought I have, or I forgot about this. I can't believe I forgot about that. This had such an impact on me at the time. This is what I'm really proud of in how I accomplished X. And also, when you look at that list, start to think about what the connectors are. What is it about those things that make you so proud of them? Was it your
Mm.
impact in the situation? Was it how you helped other people? Was it something that you created? Was it change that you drove? Whatever it might be, I think starting to connect those dots, starting to analyze what you feel really good about and what you've accomplished will help you start to see what's inside of you and what might be next for you in term if you're making a decision for a next step or if you're trying to decide if something in the moment is right for you. That's a good exercise to go through.
I do that usually. I always make sure to do that around New Year's time where I'll sit and I'll make a list of all my accomplishments from the year prior. And I always surprise myself because every New Year's, the first thought in my head is, oh, you have done nothing this year. And then I go through everything that I've done and I go, whoa, I'm a superstar. Who knew this? And because you're right, the very first thought that most women have, I think guys and girls, I don't think it's just for women, but I think in general, most thoughts that we have are just this negative Nancy that constantly like nags at us and goes, "You're not good enough. You didn't do enough. You didn't do enough." In terms of talking about, that negative voice, that critical voice that lives on us. I mean, I talk a lot about this um, and incessantly. I've discussed this a lot on this podcast about how to like, you know, turn down the volume on that voice. But what do you think is the reason that in your practice, what have you found is the reason that people inhabit this voice, and what are some ways that you've sort of given advice to tackle how to tone that down?
So there's been a lot of research around that voice, actual clinical research, and it's referred to as the saboteur. And it basically exists as a biological function for keeping us safe. And back in the day, that made sense when there were dangers at every turn and you didn't know which direction to go in. So you thought, okay, I'll just stay where I am.
Right. Don't leave the
Now that
cave. The
voice,
lion might eat you.
yeah,
Don't go there. Don't go there.
exactly.
Right. And now we don't have lions
Exactly.
when we
Just
leave our house. They're made up in our mind, and we've evolved.
100%. So, our brains are now identifying these other new stimuli as the lions, as this thing that can hurt us. And in order to keep us away from that, it tends to talk down to us
Yeah.
and tell us, you're not good enough for that. Why would you think you should try that? It's better if you do this. You don't know that. Whatever it is, or the opposite of like, you're too much this, you're too much that. We've all heard that voice say something to us. Some really in-depth research has been done by Shirzad Charmaine of Positive Intelligence. I would highly recommend going to the Positive Intelligence website and taking the saboteur assessment. It's something I do with every single one of my clients. And they're basically 10 archetypes of saboteurs that manifest themselves in different ways for each of us. And after you take the assessment, it will tell you of the 10 which ones are showing up most strongly for you. And it will give you a full page profile on each one so you can read through it and see how accurate that feels for you. And I think the first step in quieting that voice is understanding what that voice is and where it's coming from. It's understanding that when you hear those thoughts, that is not your true self speaking. That is not your actual inner leader. That is this external voice this voice that lives inside of your head, but that is not actually you. It's an introject. It is, once you can recognize where that's coming from, then you can start separating it from who you really are.
Michael Salinger wrote in the book Untethered Soul that to quiet down that voice, watch it like you're the audience watching the actor in the movie, and the voice is the actor. So it's not really real. It's a manifestation of your true self, but it's not your real voice. And that if you start watching it and paying attention to it and just kind of like looking at it, all of a sudden it doesn't have the control over you. You start to have the control over it. So one of the things that I think a lot of caregivers go through is, I can say that I've been through this. I got married at a very young age. I was 19. I had my first kid at 21. So I'm having babies through my whole 20s, not really having a time or a moment to think about my internal thoughts, right? When you're in your 20s, before you have children, you're thinking about your internal thoughts a lot, thinking about what do I want to be? What do I want to go? You're thinking about what do I like? What do I dislike? But when you're a mom, you're constantly disrupted. Even if you decide to sit down on the sofa and you finally have a few minutes, you're like, I have the thought moment. There's somebody inherently going, Ma, I need dinner. Ma, I need this, right? So you're so disrupted. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you're like older and you're like, what's in here? I don't know. So I know a lot of caregivers who go through this where they spend all their time taking care of others, not really checking in with themselves. What are some other ways that women can really, besides writing it down a list, which is so vital, and I so agree with that, and I've done it, so I can tell you it works. What are some other things that women can do to start to listen to their inner dialogue and what is their inner story better?
So I know it's easier said than done, but really taking the time to do it, like carving out the time, even if it's just 2 minutes. Maybe you can't find a full hour. That's okay. But just 2 minutes to reflect on something, to ask yourself a question that is important for you in that moment, or to assess how your day went, or even better, when you wake up in the morning, to think, what kind of day do I want to have today? And just to start having that conversation with yourself. Again, you might be interrupted. I mean, that is just the nature of life, especially having kids.
Yeah.
But I think just to do even very little things. I personally really like 5-minute guided meditations.
I
I
love five. I do it every morning and every night. 7
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
7 minutes. Even when you have a really really young child, you can usually find 5 minutes where
Kids take naps, you
yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I have a sister who has 5 children and a full-time job, and it is not easy to squeeze in that period of time where you're listening to your own voice. I don't even know how she does her life in general, but I still think you have to go to the bathroom. Everybody has to,
Exactly.
she's got, so there's 5 minutes right there. And honestly, I mean, if it's a priority for you to hear your own thoughts in a way that's just uninterrupted, where you can go, okay, what am I thinking? What do I want? What do I love? Who am I? Even those moments of just even having nothing in your head, don't you think is
I
helpful?
agree. I agree. And I would argue that it should be a priority. Whether you think it is or isn't, it should be, because ultimately you having that dialogue with yourself makes you better at whatever other things you're taking on. And it makes
Yeah,
you
I
better as a mom, as a caretaker, as an employee if you're working full time or part time or whatever, some type of arrangement like ours where we're like we run our own businesses, freelancers. I don't know what you call this.
yeah. What is this? I don't
It,
even know. At home.
I also want to add, if you have kids, I mean, depending on their age, obviously, under 2 might be a bit tough. But I think even late toddler stage and beyond, I would also add to incorporate that routine with your children. I think
To do the
teaching
meditations with
them,
them. Yeah.
doing the meditations with them or asking reflection questions with them, I think teaching them to understand their own thoughts and
Oh,
to place an emphasis and priority on that conversation with themselves, that conversation within their family, within community is really important. And you can do that with kids as young as, 3, 4, and 5. You can ask them things. They'll tell you answers. When you start
oh
asking, they will
gosh.
give it to you.
It's so vital. It's so, so, so vital. I wish I had kind of gotten into practice of doing more meditating when I was younger, when my kids were younger. I would have done it more with them. I would have done it with them, period. Now they're older, but I'm able to have these discussions with them now. So at least like I didn't totally screw them up, but no, thank God I have great kids. But there's always that
I
like,
told my friend, I said,
yeah.
don't worry, no matter what you do, there will be some other effect later on in life. So
Oh, they're
honestly,
going to therapy whether you
yeah,
try
like,
whether you try to make it better, whether you think you're crushing it and parent it or not. Trust me, they will go to therapy
there,
and they will
there will
blame
be
you.
something.
They will blame you and you will have to apologize. And it's just, and every generation, this is what we do, right?
She was
It's
like,
like,
I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse.
accept it, surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if you can do that reflection, that meditation with your kids, if they're old enough to do some type of 5-minute silent meditation or guided meditation,
Yeah.
that's great. But even if they're very little, to start making that part of the practice and the family time that you spend together, I really encourage that.
Tell me a little bit about your practice. So you started off in finance.
I did, yes. For over a decade, I worked in finance. I did my MBA in the middle of that. And I worked with, the largest institutional and ultra high net worth clients in the world, raising capital for alternative investments. Um, it's interesting because a lot of people think what I'm doing now is such a pivot from that. But I actually would
Yeah.
argue that there are a lot of similarities. And it's basically having conversations with other people, understanding what their goals and desires are, and being able to help them get there. And for me, I I never thought I mean this, how do I say this? For me, I didn't necessarily envision going into my own practice and becoming a coach. I actually didn't even know much about coaching just a few years ago. But once I found this path, it felt really right. And the fact that I get to spend my days talking to people and helping them get to where they want to go is better than I could have ever imagined. And
That's
when they
fantastic.
come with, yeah, I had a client today who came with an incredible update about something that they're working on. And I told them, I said, honestly, I said, I'm as happy for you as if I had been the one to do this thing, because
That's awesome.
it's like I love my clients. I really want the best for them. And it's so rewarding to have those conversations and to see where they're going.
And most of the clients that you have are transitioning into new careers or going into the workplace for the first time or have been in a
Most
positions that need assistance and getting better. What's the main?
Most of the clients I work with, so I should say I'm split between private individual clients and corporate clients. So the corporate client structure is a bit different. I'll come into different organizations to work with their talent, either as a facilitator for a group event, some type of team event, or one on one with some of their executives, or some combination of that.
Mhm.
And then the private side, individual coaching, is typically mid to senior level leaders and or small business owners. And they're people who are, yes, at a point of transition. I think that encompasses a lot of what we talk about, but it's not necessarily job transition or industry transition. It could also just be they're looking to level up. So
Mm.
they've been doing what they're doing for whatever period of time and they want more, whether it's a promotion, whether it's growing their business, whether it is attracting a new set of clients. It could be, a lot of different things. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, there are people who are at least several years into working.
Yeah. And are there other obstacles that you're noticing that some of your clients have struggled with that you can give some examples to?
I guess I'm hesitating on answering that question because when I think of coaching, I think of it as a wellness based model or like a personal trainer type model. So it's less so that clients are struggling with something, and it's more that they want to take control of their own personal growth into their hands and start moving forward with it. And that's why we're working together. So, everybody obviously has their own thing as to what
Their
they're
own
trying to do and
suitcase.
maybe what's, yeah, exactly.
Their own
Yeah,
baggage.
their
Yeah.
own suitcase full of things.
Yeah. Their own suitcase of
um,
baggage.
but they're not coming to me because they're struggling. They're coming to me actually because they're thriving and they're trying to figure out how to get to the next level. And they're looking for a partner in doing that. They're looking for a sounding board, especially for small business owners. A lot of times they don't have anybody else that they can go and talk to who is exclusively focused on their agenda and isn't biased for whatever actions or thoughts that they're having. And so they're coming to me because they want that partnership. I think, yeah, that's the best way I can say that.
We talked about meditation. We talked about ways to, make a list of the things that your strengths are. But what if you've discovered what your strengths are, but then what you're doing isn't working? How do you get over that obstacle of, that you might be facing? What is some strategies for reinvention, I guess?
Sure. So when you say not working, I guess the question is, what were your goals to begin with? And did you define what you want as an outcome so that you can identify is what I'm doing working or not working? Um, in terms of reinventing yourself, if you're struggling with figuring out what's next for you, or you've done a lot of the self work, but you're still not really sure, or it's not really resonating for you, I would really encourage you to dig within your support network and pick the people who know you and love you and support you and are really there for you and want your success, and ask them for some feedback, ask them for some ideas, just brainstorm with them a bit. Say, I'm trying to get to here. I'm having a bit of trouble doing that. I feel like maybe I've lost sight of what I'm good at or what I want to achieve. From your perspective, do you have any ideas? And I think open up that conversation and be really specific about who you talk to. But the people who love and support you and the people who know you well will offer you so much if you ask them.
I remember a few years ago, a very good friend of mine, Bryn Harari. She used to go by Brenda, so I wasn't wrong, but she goes by Bryn now. She's a wonderful school principal, but she also does coaching. And she said that there was a company that you could hire, and you give them like a few names of people that you know are in your inner circle, and they do a audit on you. And they go to these people and they ask everyone around you like a series of questions. You don't know who's saying what about you. Everyone's in on it. They know that you've given them permission to have this conversation with your auditor. And then the auditor comes back and gives you an assessment. I mean, you got to be so freaking courageous to do something of this magnitude. But I thought, wow, that's such an interesting way of getting perspective.
So what you're talking about is also known in the executive world as a 360 assessment. And so I do that
Yes.
on the corporate side, where you have an executive, generally speaking, it's a CEO or someone, C-level, especially when there's conversation about somebody being promoted into a C-level position, where we'll go through and do a 360 assessment and the exact same format that you're talking about in terms of there's a group of people, a designated group of people who will be answering the questions, but the actual answers are anonymous and usually compiled in a way that you can't tell who said what,
Mm.
and go through. And then you match that against what the executive fills out on their end. So they ask the same set of questions, and then you match. It depends on it depends on which assessment you're using, but some of them will actually then ask the same set of questions and then match the answers, because then that adds an extra layer of conversation, of self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to get that information. It's another thing, did you already know that information, or is this really catching you off guard? But to do that with your friends is definitely next level.
Oh, it's next level, right? Oh my God,
Yeah.
it's so scary. How do you know when you're ready for a coach?
I think if there's something inside of you that's just this really ongoing thought or burning desire, or thinking like, if only I could get to here or do this, if I had some extra support, I think I can do it. Or I'm not sure if I can do it, but I really want to do it. I think that's a time where you can start evaluating bringing in somebody else like a coach to help you get there. Um, it's funny, I heard somebody say recently that they were in the getting ready to get ready to get ready to start thinking about doing this thing stage.
That's a great one.
And so I would say they were two getting readies too early for getting a coach.
Yeah, yeah. It's also, there's a lot of people who are doing coaching now. It's not saturated by any means, but there are a lot of people calling themselves a coach and doing it and actually doing it well. There are some who are not doing it well. You are one of the people that I chose to have on the show because I only choose the people that do it very well. So I am thrilled that you're here and that I know you are igniting sparkle in many people because I know you've ignited sparkle in me. And I appreciate even those conversations we had last year. Um, just in closing, I guess it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm struggling through this. There is a flow that happens when you're leaning into your best self and to your greatest gift. If it's hard and you're like pushing through, there's usually a reason. And sometimes it's because maybe you're in the wrong lane, or maybe you're in the right lane with the wrong people. So, you have to kind of
Totally.
evaluate that. And sometimes it's hard to see outside of yourself. And that's why there are incredible people like Danielle Gopen. I got it right, who who can really guide us and give us, advice on how to find our sparkle. You were going to tell us some amazing program that you have devised in your
Yes.
in your
Yes.
dungeon in your
So
dungeon of greatness over there.
the next one actually isn't coming out for a few more months. So it gives people time to think about it, if it's right for them, if they're at a place where they feel like they're ready to activate their sparkle after they've gotten over the getting ready to get ready to think about
Of
it.
course.
Once they're ready to think about it, um, it's actually called Activate Your Sparkle. It's a program designed for women who are looking to rediscover themselves, to activate their sparkle, to either figure out what's next for them in their life, or at the very least are just looking to better define their sense of self and to understand who they are. And I think to your point earlier about caretakers losing that over a period of time, it's really designed for women who have felt that way, have all of a sudden woken up and realized, like, what do I want? Like, who am I? What's important to me? And they want to dedicate the time, hopefully more than 2 minutes a day, because it's an hour a
Yeah.
week. And so,
That's a good amount of time to really, have that assessment for yourself and like dive in. I really,
yes.
really encourage you, if you are a young mom and you're not, you're putting all your energy into taking care of children, or you are moving away from, maybe you've been old, maybe you're an older woman who's like my age, who's been a caregiver for your parents, and so all of a sudden now your life is changing again. There's so many different ways that women kind of have to go through different periods of time in their life when they're like super on for others, or they're finding their own sparkle. And I massively encourage you guys, talk to Danielle. She knows what's up, and she'll get you to that place where you can finally really see like your greatness. And I think that is what a gift you're giving your children and your spouse and the people around you when you're your full self, and everybody around you just, you know, they stand up a little taller too. So it's not just for yourself. This is not a selfish endeavor. You know, self-care is not selfish. That's a line that I wrote with my writing partner. But it's so, so true and so important, to really, you know, pay attention to what it is that, you know, makes you magnificent. Because when we ignore that, no one's happy, right?
I could not agree with you more. And I think to your last point, especially when we ignore that, we're actually doing a disservice to other people in our lives and to the
Yeah.
world at large. Because we're all unique, we all have something to offer, and when you're not paying attention to what that is and bringing that forward, everybody's missing out.
Yeah, I agree.
Also if anybody's looking for one-on-one coaching, if they want to dig deeper beyond the program that I mentioned, I'm happy to do a free 30-minute consultation and see if we're a good fit, and see if I'm not, if somebody else might be. So, you know, just putting that out there.
And head over to her website, which is?
It is very easy, daniellegopen.com. I think I'll have the link for it somewhere.
I will have the link at the bottom of the show notes, so please go check that out. I always ask my guests one last question, which is, how do you nurture yourself? What is your go-to nurturing thing that's like, by the way, I just got back from getting my nails done and I spent about $90 on like massaging my whole body. And I don't care. I'll do it again.
I'm very good at self-care. I would say it's one of my strengths. My bank account would probably prefer to not be so strong. And basically anything that you can think of. So
what's your go-to number? What'd you do today?
What did I do today? Well, today was kind of a busy day. So honestly, what I did was just like jogged in place next to my desk for a minute. Just to get the blood flowing.
That's a nurturing moment.
Yeah, but on any, you know what? I also drank 2 iced lattes because those make me feel great.
Yes. What do you put in it?
I would say, okay, so I feel like this is blasphemous now, but I just use whole milk and espresso. Sometimes even half and half.
You haven't hit menopause yet, have you? This is why she's having
actually
whole milk.
One time I came back from a vacation, I only had heavy cream in the fridge. The half and half had expired. I ran out of milk, and so I thought, should I try to make a cappuccino with heavy cream?
Heavy cream is where it's at, baby.
It was amazing.
Oh, it's the best.
Oh my goodness, how have I not been doing this whole time? But you know, I can't drink heavy cream cappuccinos every day.
I do every day. Heavy cream every day.
So good. So decadent.
Live on that stuff. So good. Well, if you eat a keto lifestyle, which I do, then you can do it once a day, totally guilt-free, and still lose weight. It is true. A miraculous food group.
I love that. Okay, things I do to nurture myself. I mean, when I can, obviously it's been a bit difficult with COVID and whatnot, but yes, getting my nails done is great. I like to have them done because when they're done, it makes me feel more put together. I'm a big fan of massages. I used to do them relatively often. Now it's been a bit challenging. Small day-to-day things like, honestly, just making really great coffee at home. I alternate between hot coffee and lattes and iced lattes and cold brew.
Guys, do you see why we're best friends? Do you understand? This is, you are my homie. What can I say?
Every day is different. And I have one more small thing that actually brings a lot of joy. It's not expensive. If you go to Trader Joe's, or I guess another place, but Trader Joe's has the best prices, and you buy just a small bunch, or one size, but if you buy a bunch of the eucalyptus that they have there and you break it apart and you put some in the shower, and then you have like a spa steam shower every day. It's great.
I'm going to have to try this. This sounds amazing.
Really great. Yeah.
I will one up you. I will not one up, but I will give you one myself. If you go to Sprouts and you and you go to the section that has all of the face cream stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There is a bag. It is $19.99 and it is worth every single penny. You can get a few baths out of this. It is CBD bath salt. CBD.
Nice.
And after you get out of that bath, you cannot feel your body. It feels so good. So if you have any pain,
Sprouts.
I love Sprouts. That's my go-to store.
I love Sprouts. I just went there for the first time like 3 months ago. I didn't know what I was missing.
Oh yeah, it's been my safe haven. It's been pretty much the only place I go to party throughout quarantine because there was nowhere else that was open. The only place to go.
Great stuff. That's another thing I do for self-care is just having food around the house, like buying food that is, that good balance of like food that makes you feel good and that's not so unhealthy. So, and I feel like Sprouts has really good options for that. Like their flaxseed carrot cake muffins, really good.
Oh yeah, we love those. Do you ever get the little chocolate ones, the chocolate muffins?
I haven't yet, but I will.
They're the best. Oh, they're the best. They're so good. Thank you so much for being on the Nurture series, Danielle. This has been so fantastic. I love everything about you. I want to be you when I grow up. What can I tell you? I love you so much. But thank you so much for being here and for participating on the Nurture series.
You're embarrassing me, but I love it. No, seriously. Thank you, Chava, so much for having me. This has been amazing. I am excited to, 1, hear the episode, but 2, also hopefully do more of these in the future because it's so fun.
Yeah, it is so much fun. And you also have a podcast that you just started. So if anybody wants to go listen to Danielle's podcast, go check out her website. I'm sure she has everything on there and you can listen to her. What's the name of your podcast called?
Activate Your Sparkle.
I had no idea. You're definitely a sparkly one, and we are thrilled that you participated and brought your sparkle to our channel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
So go ahead and nurture yourselves back to wellness. This is Chava Florin from the Nurture series. Nurture this.